And good evening, everybody. It's a little past 1 a.m. Eastern time here in New Jersey, New York, and D.C., where your radio voices are presenting NYCFC Postgame Live. The season has officially come to a conclusion. It had in MLS with the penalty kick loss to Orlando City in the playoffs. And now in the quarterfinals of the Concacaf Champions League, New York City's first appearance in this competition since their inception in 2015. It ends in the second leg with a 4-0 loss to Tigres of Liga MX, and Tigres advances to the semifinals on aggregate 5-0. I'm Glenn Crooks, Ariel Hudas, Roberto Abramowitz, Tom Kolker here on the postgame. And Roberto, I'll start with you, and we also welcome comments. You bring your comments to us, and we will share as we move along, and whether it's a lamentation, a comment, a question, a criticism, what positives there were in this season. But Roberto, the first half hour seemed promising. New York City knew they had to score at least one to get into PKs, and two to outright win. And there were chances.
There were absolute chances, and that was the story of the game, that they created a ton of chances, and yet they couldn't put any of them away. And then while they were creating and missing, Tigres didn't have to create that much, but they were able to bury theirs. And that turns out to be the difference, the quality up front, when you have somebody like Gignac who gets a chance and buries it. And New York City had half a dozen chances and weren't able to put any of them away. So if New York City probably puts one in early, it's a different ballgame. If Gignac doesn't bury that one, maybe it's a different ballgame. But at the end of the day, there's a difference, right? And there was a marked difference. And we understand that there were absences, but there were absences for both teams. But New York City, and this is something that we talked with Ronnie after the game, that this shows New York City where its weaknesses are. I mean, they were exposed when you play a team like Tigres, okay? And they tell you, they go after your weaknesses, and they tell you, these are your weaknesses, and we're going to exploit them, and we're going to exploit these for 90 minutes. And it was, in a way, good that they didn't need to score more goals, because if they had really, really pressed in the second half, if they needed goals, it might have been even uglier. So New York City now basically has a blueprint, if they didn't have it before, of what they need to fix. And one of the things that Ronnie said that, should give New York City fans hope going forward is that the team is going to be willing to spend money, which is something that we haven't heard. So let's see if they identify what we identify as weaknesses on the team, and they try to shore up those weaknesses and get better for next season.
And Ronnie Dyla and Luis Barraza were the speakers in the post-match press conference. And Tom, we've heard earlier that the David Lee, the sporting director, had indicated pretty much that they would be looking for attacking players on the transfer market. That was a couple of weeks ago. It seems very evident when you see the classy finishing of Tigres versus New York City FC.
Yeah, I mean, Gignac was great. Quinones was a handful. He really gave Mata a hard time out on the wing. And to Roberto's point, they didn't have a ton of opportunities, but they finished every one. And you feel a little bit for a guy like Barraza. It was exciting to see him in there, but there was nothing he could do tonight. I mean, they were just top class finishes. So New York City's got a lot of thinking to do, and it's good that they're going to spend money. We've talked about the fact that they needed to get a top quality striker for a while. Someone that can go in and finish what Gignac did tonight. But I think there were more holes that were shown again tonight, and I don't know if Mata is the answer out on the wing defensively. He was exposed quite a bit tonight. Quinones was great. He was the man of the match, no question. But there are a lot of holes for this team to fill moving into 2021.
Ariel, what before we get into some of the quotes for the press conference, what's your initial take on what you've seen and what you saw this season and where we're headed?
I think that at some moment in time, NYCFC needs to discuss levels. We know that the team has enough level to compete in the regular season, qualify for the playoffs, and make some interesting things in the playoffs. But if you play a tournament like this, when you're gonna face eventually the Americas, the Tigres, the Monterreys of the life, and eventually very good teams in MLS such as Toronto, LAFC, a very good Atlanta, maybe one day, you need something else. And that's the discussion point for me in the next months or so. Do we want to have a team that competes and it's good enough for regular season and doing things in the playoffs, or do we want to have a team that can compete against these Mexican monsters, so to say? I don't know how to call them. Yeah.
No, but that's Ronnie said in the press conference. Roberto, you might have been the one that asked him. Playing against a side like this, do you get that idea? You get that picture of what it takes? And he said absolutely. That they were much more creative in the last third of the pitch, and we got there but didn't create anything. It didn't play quickly enough to open them up, and I think that's a big part of it. That when they have to play fast, they do. I'm talking about Tigres and the league that they play in, and their finishes were actually, I didn't see the last one very well. I was getting prepared for this, but all the previous ones were were clinical, as they would say, and creative, as the back heel would contest.
Well, we talked about this before the game, right? You know, that speed was going to be a big difference. And it became very obvious, the difference, especially on the right side of Tigres' attack, right? Quiñones was just brilliant. It wasn't just, beating Matarrita, because he beat Callens as well, and he beat anybody who was in light blue who tried to defend him tonight. And he was precise on his crosses. He was great on his passes. I mean, those 3 assists were just top level, top shelf. And you start seeing that, MLS has players that are like that, just nowhere near enough. And that's where the league is going to have to start. Look, if the league wants to stop this, okay, because it's been 11 years since the last time that a Mexican team hasn't won this, and the last time an MLS team won Concacaf Champions League, which wasn't even in this format, was back in 2001 when the LA Galaxy won it. So, they have to look at this and say, we've got to get better, not only because we've got to compete better and be more attractive because of all of our teams. And, when New York City plays Columbus, or when Orlando plays LAFC, or FC Dallas plays Houston, whatever it is. But if the league wants to be able to compete internationally, and they want to be able to compete with Mexico, and if they want to compete with Mexico, they have to increase the level of player that's brought here. And how do you do that? You've got to open up the salary cap more than it's open, and it's going to be very, very difficult after the league just basically blew $1 billion this year because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough ask, but at the same time, I mean, does Don Garber really want to have to answer questions of why, MLS teams can't beat Mexican teams in the Champions League? I mean, so MLS right now is just basically has all of its eggs in the LAFC basket. And, they're hoping that can be the team that Bob Bradley can bring MLS out of its almost 2-decade funk of winning this tournament.
And they'll have that one-off with Cruz Azul tomorrow, 10:30 Eastern. Atlanta down 3-0 aggregate to Club America. They'll play the earlier game the way, because of COVID and the scheduling. The LAFC Cruz Azul game is a knockout game. And, as Ronnie said, you get answers when you play good teams like this. So your reflections, Roberto, ring true with the head coach. We do have a question from Ace Galaxy because not only did Luis Barraza have a personal interest in starting his first and playing in his first professional game in goal in place of Sean Johnson, the new homegrown player, Andres Jason, got into the match. You guys may have seen more of it than me. Over the last 20 minutes of the match or so, I was preparing for this and didn't see each moment. I did see him on the ball a couple of times, and he looked comfortable. It wasn't a pressurized situation, though. His team's down 4. Any comments? Ariel, what do you think?
I think that I like what I saw about Jason. Jason, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
he pronounces it Jason, so I think we've got to go with that.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. I saw interesting things about him. He's pretty smart and trying to make something out of nothing, maybe, and that's what you need to do when you're down 4-0 and you're 20 minutes in before the game ends. So it was pretty fun. Yeah, I liked him.
Tom, you got any Jason thoughts?
No, yeah. I mean, just to kind of echo what Ariel said, he looked comfortable on the ball. It didn't look like the moment was too big for him. He tried to be creative when he could, and that's what you want to see from a young kid in his first test, his debut, and doesn't get much bigger than Concacaf Champions League going up against a team like a Tigres. But he looked comfortable on the ball, and going back to Barraza, those finishes were clinical. So I don't care if it was Sean Johnson or Neuer in goal, that no one was stopping what Tigres did tonight in terms of scoring. So, but he had his moments too. He had one nice play against Gignac when he got in behind the defense, where he was trying to chip him and he stood him up, and a couple other plays where he was aggressive on the ball. And when it was passed back to him, he looked comfortable, like we talked about a lot in the pregame, with the ball on his feet. So there's some positives there as well, but you got to feel for the kid a little bit. He waits 2 years to get his debut, and it's some world-class finishes by Tigres that nobody's stopping.
And that was Gignac scored the first goal off the header from Quinones. Then it was Fernandez from Quinones, and then Carioca from Quinones. So the assist hat trick for Quinones at the hour mark of the match, and then Aquino. I don't know, Javier. Is it Aquino or Aquino? Aquino. From Gignac. So Gignac with a goal and an assist, and Quinones with 3 assists. And the quality was unmistakable in this match. Although statistically, interestingly, New York City outshooting Tigres 15-6. But of those 6 shots, all 6 were on target. So Luis Barraza, 2 saves and 4 goals allowed, and that's just a difficult debut for him.
How many times, were this, to me, this sort of mirrored a lot what happened in New York City in the regular season, guys? I don't know what you think, but how many times would we get ready to do soccer in the city after a match, or we would talk post game, and it was always about the team had possession, they looked good. It was always the final third. They could never get it done in the final third, and that rung true tonight. They had tons of chances, especially as you guys were talking about in the first 30 minutes. They were aggressive and had opportunities, but man, it wasn't. You never really felt like it was even really a threat in that final third. Even though time and time again they were able to get to that position, it just sort of seemed to me like a repeat of what we saw during the regular season.
Yeah, it's 1-0 at halftime, and Joe Tallis in the Yes Network play-by-play voice texted me, who do you think will score? And I didn't come up with anyone. What I know that we went back and forth a little bit about Maxi Morales, especially you, Ariel, playing so deep in the midfield and lacking the ability to create. And our discussion was, well, if Keaton Parks comes into the game, isn't it Gary Mackay-Steven who comes out? And now you've got Maxi closer to the goal, and you've got Parks working with Acevedo, which is more of Parks Sands, Parks Ring, that familiar twin 6. So Maxi got forward, with a half hour left in the game, but it didn't really help.
No. And correct me if I am wrong. Gary Mackay-Steven played the full 90.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
I honestly, I don't understand that. I don't understand that because I'm gonna. He may he got some chances, some weird things, more in line with what he's been doing in the last games of the regular season and the last games basically. But that doesn't make for a whole season. I don't know why he's a starter and why he plays full 90, and I don't get that. He's not up to the level to be a 90 minutes player for me. That's it.
Well, in this particular situation, maybe because Parks, you knew that Ronnie Dyla did not want to push Parks to the limit
Yeah,
today, and
I know.
that was maybe that was the cause. But at halftime, I think we all had a pretty strong suspicion that there might be something that happens to generate the attack, which would be Maxi getting closer to goal. I mean, if probably their only way they were going to come up with something. I don't know. Medina didn't have his. Medina was bashful about shooting. Tajuri Shradi was trying to force things, maybe because of what was happening. Castellanos as well, but Mackay Steven had two of the better chances of the match.
Yeah,
and he walked in on goal and tripped over. It was defended, but his first touch really failed him.
That's where he lost that play. He lost it on his first touch. If he has a good first touch, he's in easily, but he tripped over his own feet over the ball.
But how many times have we seen Mackay Steven get himself set into that position where he's in on goal?
Let me ask you this.
He doesn't finish it.
Right. Let me ask you this. Okay. Let me ask you this. If Andre Pierre Gignac had that ball played to him, what happens?
Well, I know.
So that's the difference we're talking about, right?
Well, we're talking the difference between Gary Mackay Steven and Alexander Mitriza. And I'm not saying Mitriza would have 100% scored that goal, but he's of the quality on the wing.
He would have gotten a shot off.
There's things happen, and Mackay Steven just hasn't he's worked hard, and that's the side of the ball on the defensive side where Ronnie, I think, maybe favors him a little bit, and we've seen him progress, and there have been moments for him, but it was difficult. Castellanos led the way with 4 shots, 3 shots each for Shradi, Matarrita, and Chanot. Chanot off the set pieces, and got him on frame this time. 2 head balls, but that were saved by Guzman. Neither one of them very difficult.
Yeah, but Glenn, let's go back to Gary Mackay Steven. I think that play basically encapsulates his season.
Yeah,
I mean, it just really does, because he finally gets an opportunity. I mean, the guy works hard. I'm not saying he doesn't work hard, but he just doesn't have. But he just doesn't have the quality to be able to do what the team really needs him to do. He just doesn't have it. And so when you get an opportunity like that in a game like that, I mean, that could turn the game. That's the opportunity that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
He's in alone. He has a step, but he winds up literally tripping over the ball.
Well,
and they get nothing out of it.
Medina comes out of the game instead of Mackay Steven. So Medina was subbed at the, I just want to make sure I have this right, at the 69-minute mark. That's when Parks came in. So I know when we were texting, it was Parks for Mackay Steven, I think is the way most of us had it. And then Andres Jason came in to make his debut for Ismail Tajuri Shradi. So you've taken Medina and Shradi off. I was envisioning Medina on that layoff from Castellanos that Mackay Steven put wide and over the bar, because Medina had recently scored a goal like that. But he wasn't particularly sharp tonight either.
Well, they took him out of the game, by the way, because he was about to blow. I mean, he was chipping at everybody. He was he looked like he was ready to get into a fight. And he was a red card waiting to happen at that point. And I think that's why he got pulled. It wasn't because of the performance. It was because he was about to blow. He lost it.
Well, Fox got the pictures of him, tossing the water bottle. He was very upset. Yeah. After he was taken off, and they got a good picture of him, just how he was gazing out onto the field, and you could tell there was anger, and you can imagine, what everybody's been through, these players, and knowing that the season was coming to a conclusion in that same stadium, Exploria Stadium, where the Orlando City debacle occurred, and it's just I don't believe in curses or, places, can have that sort of pull on you. But I don't know. Are you superstitious, Tom? You
No, I mean,
trichodecaphobic or what?
no. I mean, look, that stadium right now, from the city perspective, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But look, you're gonna have to go there once or twice a year, every year. There's no
nice
getting around
field.
playing there, right?
I would want to play on that field. And tonight it was 60
Yeah.
degrees tonight.
Yeah.
The heat was not a problem, So this was a game where you could run around without collapsing. No hydration breaks. So last time we saw a match in Orlando, wasn't there a hydration break in that playoff game? Or where all those breaks maybe were just because Alan Chapman was trying to figure out who could go in goal. I can't remember.
Still not sure about that.
So earlier, Montreal defeated Olympia 1-0, but they fell short on aggregate. So it is Tigres against Olympia in one Concacaf Champions League semifinal. And Tigres is looking to get to the finals for the fourth time in the last 5 years. So there's consistency, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
They get there. They
look to be, I mean, having watched both games, they look like the stronger side. Like, I would favor them going into that matchup against Olympia. But guess you never know. But to me, they just look like the more complete team.
It was everybody. So Club America is certainly not going to blow a 3-0 lead to Atlanta. And how about LAFC Cruz Azul? I mean, do we have the MLS, gaining a spot in the semis or not?
I don't know. LAFC hasn't been.
But they've got players back, right? Aren't there COVID players back?
Rossi is back. And
Rossi's back, yeah.
So
Brian
Fernandez is back.
Fernandez is back. And then and Carlos Vela is healthy, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at least they have their players.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a one-off, right? They're not going in having to score 3 just to get through. Or it's
right.
They win 1-0, they go through.
Right, if they can.
One thing I wanted to give Luis Barraza another shout. I had transcribed some of his presser. We are not able to get clips from that, but he said, when I got the news, I was really, really excited. That is about starting in place of Sean Johnson, despite the fact that it was because Sean had a close contact with a COVID positive within the team and was unable to travel. And he just put it's a crazy story in a crazy year. And he said that's the second goal was the turning point of the game. True. Nonetheless, you still have time to score 2 goals and still win the match. But the finishing touch wasn't nearly there. What else can I tell you statistically? If you look at the corners, New York City 8-1 advantage. Did not take advantage of that. Although John Strong during the broadcast, I was not aware of this. New York City was 3rd in the league in goals scored off of corner kicks this year. New York City ended with a possession edge at 51%, passing accuracy 84% to 83% for Tigres. And Tigres was forced into 18 clearances. So there was pressure, but again, not that precision. And I think I don't know how many other ways we could describe their inability in the final third today. Anybody else have other descriptions? No.
I think you summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did that.
All right.
Look, they know what they've got to do for next year. They know. I mean, it became, if it wasn't obvious before, and I'm sure it was obvious to them before, it became plainly obvious to everybody today. And we understand that there are a lot of players that were missing because of COVID and the importance of those players. I mean, because you're missing you're missing your 2 best defensive midfielders, which is Alex Ring and James Sands. So that doesn't help the equation, mind you. And we understand that MLS teams in general just don't have the type of depth that teams in Mexico have. They just don't, especially the top teams in Mexico. And Tigres is one of the teams that spends the most money in Mexico on players. I mean, they're top two. Between them and Monterrey, and then from there you start dropping down to America. Chivas always forced to overpay for everybody because they only play Mexicans. And then you have Pumas, Cruz Azul,
Monterrey.
Santos. Monterrey is number one.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have Santos, Cruz Azul, Pumas. Who else to a lesser degree? That's pretty. I mean, those are the Tijuana, and those are the spenders in Mexico, and everybody else that's a little bit different. But those are the guys that spend money.
All right. Well, look, let's close this with the words of Ronnie Dyla. We need to do something in the transfer market this window to bring in the right players to raise the standard for next season. So that's the head coach. That's his desire. He sees it close up by this matchup with Tigres. So I think, and you asked him afterwards, Roberto, and I think it was a clear-cut answer that yes, I've seen it. I know what we need in order to compete at that level. So we'll see what happens. Remember, they traded for an additional international roster spot, and by all looks, there are 4 internationals on the roster now, and they have 9 slots, which would indicate you're not acquiring an international roster spot for the amount of money they paid. What was it, 225,000? Or is that another transaction I'm thinking of? Anyway,
I don't remember.
They paid a good amount of money for that international roster spot. So if you're going to do that, something's going down. But we don't have anything to share outside of that.
And
unless one of you do.
Do you guys expect other teams such as Austin, for instance, coming to NYCFC to try to trade some players? I expect that.
That they're going to try to get some guys?
Yeah,
because of Reyna's relationship, you mean?
Yeah, of course. He knows the team. Yeah. He knows the players.
He's got Ben Sweat now.
Yeah.
So he brought back Ben.
Yes, he did.
And Sweat will more than likely start at left back. So he had that chance for Inter Miami this year, and now he'll do it for another expansion team. And he was practically with New York City when they were an expansion team. So Ben Sweat just they just move around all the new teams.
Is anybody untouchable, Ariel?
I don't think so.
In New York City?
Yeah.
I got to think.
Unless you're selling him to Europe.
Tino Holm is the only untouchable.
Tino Holm, Ring.
I'd say Collins. I think Collins. He's left-footed, and he's a good central defense. I have no.
Chano. I mean, those guys to me. He's been solid. He's been solid. He's been really, really solid. So I mean, what are you getting?
You're saying untouchable. You're saying untouchable. I don't think you're getting anything for Chano. So that's probably a moot point.
Right, exactly. So he's untouchable. I mean,
but no. How about up top? Not a single player you could say is untouchable.
No,
you can't, because you don't have a reliable finisher. I would, and Eber's going nowhere. I don't think so. That's it's hard to measure the absence of Eber in all this, because he's, we saw it for the outset. We know he slumped a little bit, but even when he wasn't scoring goals, he was doing the kinds of things that were setting up teammates, and they weren't finishing. But he's a guy. He's an MLS finisher without question. His loss was enormous, and he's not going to play until June, coming off the ACL. So I don't know.
I still think Tati's I don't know if he's untouchable. God, that's a hard one. I mean, I think he's untouchable in a ways that they wouldn't want to get rid of him. But if somebody gave him, somebody in Europe wanted to take a flyer on him for X amount of $1 million, they would sell him. But I don't think that they'd say, if anybody from MLS came and said, hey, I'll trade you for an international slot and a first draft pick or something like that they'd say, fine. I think the upside of Tati Castellanos, of everybody of all the forwards, is the highest.
No, but you need to bring another striker.
Right, which is what they don't have already. So, I mean, he's not going anywhere.
Well, they need another playmaker as well.
That's priority number one, yes.
And what Ronnie said to me, I don't know, within the last month in one of our pregame briefings when we discussed it, is he doesn't expect to have. It's not going to be a Maxi Morales classic number 10. It's going to be a modern day number 10. Receive the ball in a half turn, run at the back four, create in that manner. A lot more. I don't want to say active, but active in getting forward and being really dynamic in the attack, as opposed to, unlocking and whirling out of pressure and things like that. So it'd be nice if we get the player that could do both, but
you need to groom somebody. I mean, you need to bring somebody in who you're going to groom, because you're going to get one more year out of Maxi. He's got one more year on his contract. And then again, also, Maxi proved this year that he was fragile. And so you have to be concerned about that.
I don't know if the number 10, what do you got? I don't see it as a grooming position. And we mentioned this, what was it, in the last Soccer in the City, when you look at the Final Four in the MLS Cup, look at the playmakers. Look at who the number 10s were. I mean, those guys weren't groomed. Ladero, Zelarayan, I mean, they weren't really groomed. They were who they were when they got there.
But by the way, you had one in New York City and you let him get away to Dortmund. And at 18 years old, he's your number 10. So maybe Jason winds up being your number 10. Yeah. And if he's given a chance. Or does he have to go to Germany for a chance?
If you want to bring a Lodero Acelarayan, you have to start thinking about investing $7, $8, $10 million, because that's what they are worth. They're worth that money. So,
and they are.
Yeah.
You watch their quality, and as we identified, they all who were the other semifinalists? Why I'm blanking here.
Minnesota.
Minnesota had Reynoso, and then who's left? Who are we forgetting? It just happened. Or is it because it's 1:30 in the morning?
Columbus, New England.
Carlos
Gil. Yeah, okay.
Carlos Gil.
So there you go. There's your semifinalists and the four top playmakers in the league.
Well,
exclusive of Maxi Morales, but Maxi missed most of
right. I mean, let's not forget Maxi Morales had 20 assists in the regular season in 2019.
No, he's great, but you have to start thinking about.
And New York City won the East. And got into the Concacaf Champions League, which they were playing in tonight because of Maxi Morales and his 20 assists.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, as much as everybody, and as you're saying, hey, let's get a modern number 10, and everybody wants a modern number 10, the number 10 they have is pretty damn good if he can stay healthy.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, look, our season has ended, but maybe we'll create something, I mean, we can I don't know, create a new league. Start a winter league, the winter MLS. Remember, NASL it was NASL outdoor and indoor. Why don't we do MLS indoor, man?
We had that. Well, I mean, if you want to come and help me coach Eddie's team that's playing in Chelsea Piers starting in January, I can use that.
I'm not allowed to cross the border right now, so I'm COVID restricted.
This is not true. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut basically act as one state when it comes to that.
Well, this is more a personal decision. I suppose,
that's something else.
And an actual health mandate. Yeah.
So stop using, the governors as an excuse for not wanting to come in.
Well, Andrew Cuomo closed. He's locking down the indoor dining, so that's causing and school. What's going on with schools? Are they shutting?
They're
again?
Open. No, they're open.
Okay.
Schools are open, indoor dining is closed, and then for tomorrow, outdoor dining after 2:00 is closed because of the storm that's coming. It's a pretty big storm.
Yeah.
So they're saying it's going to be like 12 inches in New York. So,
what did you call it, Tom?
Snowmageddon.
Again.
What the?
I know. Every time we get a snowstorm, Snowmageddon. They make it this big thing. It's like, it's snowing. That's all it is. And we got 10 inches.
Yeah, well, you don't have to shovel a driveway and a sidewalk, and I know that's.
This is why I live in a co-op.
I have to do it in
other
shifts.
People who do that.
I have to do it in shifts. Well, that's why I work out during the year, because I know eventually I'm going to have to shovel.
Okay, watch your back. Bend
my
your
back
knees.
and my heart. You have to be careful shoveling. That's right. You have to use your knees.
And
It's very
by the
important to
way,
use your legs.
And by the way, don't you have a daughter who can take care of that for you? That's why you had kids, isn't it?
She has to fly in from New Mexico in order to
Smart
To
girl.
shovel. Yeah.
to shovel.
Smart girl.
She did watch our pregame live, though. I got a text from her during the show, and she said, please tell Roberto that he needs to work in front of a mirror so that he could improve his presence.
That's a fair point.
Well, I need more than a mirror. If she knows where I can find a miracle, that would probably be more helpful.
All right, guys. Well, in a few hours, we'll be recording Soccer in the City along with John Rojas.
Are we doing that tomorrow?
At 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
I don't like you. God almighty.
Well, listen, and then Sirius XM, I've got my show. You can listen to that tomorrow night, and then I'll be shoveling. So my day is complete. My day tomorrow is all set. We get to talk more about this game, this 4-0 loss and the season and all that. But that's good. So Soccer in the City, we'll publish it tomorrow. Hope anybody that's been watching or watches this again has enjoyed it. We're going to wrap for Roberto Abramowitz, Tom Kolker, Ariel Hudas. Guys, have a great night. I'm Glenn Crooks. Thanks for being with us on NYCFC Postgame Live. Again, tonight, New York City dropping a 4-0 result to Tigres, second leg, Concacaf Champions League. Tigres advancing to the semifinals, 5-0 on aggregate. Good night, everybody.